400 years old. Thank you, darling. That's so nice. It's a wonderful birthday.
Our next guest, a former clinical professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School, Dr. Lance Dotis, said, quote, "It would be no surprise if eventually, like Saddam Hussein, when he was finally put on trial, he shouts that he is the one true ruler and any effort to hold him accountable is illegal and immoral." And last night, after his first appearance in federal court as a criminal defendant, Donald Trump said this.
I am the only one that can save this nation.
And joining us now is Dr. Lance Dotis, a retired assistant clinical professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School. Dr. Dotis is a contributor to the best-selling book, The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump. 37 psychiatrists and mental health experts assess a president. Dr. Dotis, thank you very much for joining us again tonight. That thing he said last night about I'm the only one that can save this nation sounded very Saddam Hussein to me.
Absolutely. You know, he's the only one in his universe. He lives in a solipsistic world in which other people don't exist as separate centers of initiative, as people who have feelings and cares of their own. And he doesn't care about them. It's all about Donald Trump. So, of course, he is the ruler. He is the king of his own world. And no rules should apply to him. And he's the only one who could do anything. So that's what's been wrong with him his whole life.
Let's listen to what his niece, Mary Trump, said on Monday night on this program. Let's listen to this.
Unfortunately for us, for most of his life, just throwing a temper tantrum and digging his heels in and refusing to acknowledge reality has worked for him because there has always been somebody there or some entity there to support him. He may have reached the end of that particular road.
Dr. Dotis, is Donald Trump capable of realizing that he's reached the end of that kind of road?
I think that he's aware of it. I think he's worried. And what happens is, as he gets more worried, I believe the veneer slips away. So the action, the behavior of appearing to be kind or caring about anybody, all of that disappears as he gets under more stress, and we see what lies beneath the psychopathic, virulent person that he actually is. So is he aware of it? I think he's aware of a threat to him. I don't think he is capable of being aware that he has actually done something that's a problem.
Let's listen to the 30-second version of what he said last night that really took us into that Saddam Hussein rhetoric zone that you predicted we'd be in at this point. Let's listen to this.
Yeah.
They want to take away my freedom because I will never let them take away your freedom. It's very simple. They want to silence me because I will never let them silence you. They want you silent. And I am the only one that can save this nation because you know they're not coming after me, they're coming after you, and I just happen to be standing in their way, and I will never be moving.
What was your reaction to that, Doctor?
Somebody wrote him a couple of good lines, but other than that, you know, whenever he says you, referring to his supporters, or whenever he refers to the country, he means me, Donald Trump. He's never going to let anyone stand in the way of Donald Trump. Like all populist demagogues, that's the populist part of it. He pretends, he lies, and says, this is all for you. I'm standing in the way. They're really coming after you. Of course not. They're coming after him, and he does know that. And his way out is to claim that it's not him at all. It's they who are being attacked. He's their defender, according to him.
Is there a psychiatric explanation for why he kept these documents after the federal government demanded them, sent a subpoena for him, after he was told by lawyers he had to give them back?
My guess would be that it makes him greater in his own mind. Now he has secret documents, which he had when he was president. But if he loses the presidency, at least he has the secret documents It's like having a badge, you know, when you're 4 years old that says you're a secret policeman. I think it's something like that. He needs it for himself.
And as we go forward, what do you expect? Because we could, by the fall, he could be facing 4 different criminal cases in 4 different places.
Right. I think that to the extent that the trials are able to go forward, despite his bluster and despite the possible bias of the judge, as in Miami, to the extent they go through it, I think he will look worse and worse. He won't be worse and worse, but there'll be less of the veneer, and we'll see how much of a psychopath he is. I mean, that's the psychiatric explanation, that he is fundamentally different from normal people, and we'll see more and more of that.
Dr. Lance Dotus, thank you very much for joining us again.